There was a time you called her beautiful. You held her hand like it was the only thing that kept you grounded. But now you scroll past her presence like she's a pop-up you didn't ask for. She started to change. But she didn't change on her own. She changed because you changed. Her voice became sharper, not because she lost love, but because she couldn't find yours anymore. Her laughter faded, not because she stopped being joyful, but because you stopped being her joy. She lost control when you lost interest, and make no mistake, this isn't just about romance, this is about responsibility. This is about the sacred weight of connection. When you turn your heart cold, when you let the fires die out, what do you expect to remain but ashes? God designed love not to be convenient, but to be covenant. Not something you rent, but something you build. And anything you stop building will eventually collapse. And now here she is, shouting, crying, withdrawing, aching, not because she wants to be dramatic, but because she's drowning in the silence you left behind. You say she overreacted. I say she was overburdened. You say she lost her mind. I say she was left without yours. Let me ask you, how long did you expect her to carry the weight of two hearts alone? Now listen carefully, because this is not the end of her story, and it doesn't have to be the end of yours. Yes, she may have lost control, but maybe, just maybe, that loss is what can shake you out of your indifference. Because heaven never calls a man to complacency. Heaven calls him to accountability. So if you're still breathing, if she's still hoping, if there's still a flicker of what was once a flame, then hear me. It's not too late. It's not too late to repent for your distance. It's not too late to rebuild the bridge you burned with silence. It's not too late to love her back to life. And even if she's already walked away, it's not too late to become the kind of man God always meant for you to be. Because losing her control wasn't the tragedy, your indifference was. The question tonight is, will you change before it's too late? Stay with me until the end, because what I'm going to share next could change your relationship, your future, and your faith forever. Love doesn't disappear all at once. It drains slowly, quietly, like air leaking from a balloon. At first, she tried harder. She laughed at your jokes a little louder, cooked your favorite meals without asking, leaned in closer at night hoping you'd notice her warmth. But you were already drifting. Not physically, you were still there, but your interest had left the room. Your eyes, your words, your energy, they all began to retreat. And in their place, a silence crept in that she couldn't explain. That silence became her prison. You stopped asking how her day was. You didn't notice her new dress. You heard her voice but didn't listen to her words. What was once a partnership began to feel like a performance, hers alone. She didn't lose control in a single moment of anger or one outburst of emotion. She lost control in 1,000 tiny moments where she felt herself slipping into invisibility while standing right next to you. It wasn't the absence of grand gestures that broke her. It was the absence of presence. The way you looked through her instead of at her. The way your phone got more attention than her eyes. She noticed. Every woman does. And while you thought she was being dramatic or sensitive, what she was really doing was grieving the death of your attention. Because when a man loses interest, he doesn't just take his affection with him. He takes her sense of safety, her confidence, her belief that she is enough. She starts to question everything. Am I not beautiful anymore? Am I not interesting? Is he looking for someone else? And when those questions go unanswered, they don't disappear, they multiply, they echo. They grow until she no longer sees herself through her own eyes, but through the lens of your neglect. This is the emotional vacuum, the painful space left behind when love stops showing up, but never officially ends. And in that space, a woman begins to unravel. She overthinks, she overcompensates, she becomes anxious, reactive, sometimes even cold. Not because she stopped loving you, but because she no longer feels loved by you. She was not built to sustain intimacy alone. She was not made to pour endlessly without ever being filled. And when she starts losing control, when her emotions feel bigger than the room, when her voice shakes or rises, when she withdraws or explodes. It is not the sign of her weakness. It is the evidence of your absence. She didn't become unstable. She became empty. Her control wasn't lost, it was exhausted. She was holding together the cracks in your connection with her bare hands, and the moment you stopped caring was the moment the weight became too much. That vacuum you left behind didn't just pull her into chaos. It pulled out of her the very essence of who she used to be when she felt seen, known, and loved. No one ever announces the exact moment love begins to fade. It doesn't come with alarms or warning signs you can't ignore. It slips in quietly, on the heels of routine, wrapped in busy schedules and casual neglect. It starts when conversations grow shorter, when texts lose warmth, when eye contact turns into glances that pass by instead of linger. You don't even notice it at first. You think you're just tired, distracted, stressed. But what's really happening is the beginning of the silent drift, the slow separation of two hearts that once beat in rhythm, now floating apart like islands in a widening sea. At first, she pretended not to notice. She gave you space, told herself it was just a phase, a hard week, a rough month. She thought you'd come back. She believed that if she loved hard enough, stayed kind enough, avoided conflict, you'd return to her. But instead, the silence grew louder. And in that silence, she started to shrink. The woman who once stood strong beside you started second-guessing herself. Every time you pulled away, every time your tone grew sharp or your touch grew cold, she asked herself what she did wrong. That's the part you never saw. You didn't hear her cry in the shower. You didn't see her scroll through old photos at midnight, searching for the moment your smile changed. You thought everything was fine because she didn't complain. But she wasn't at peace. She was in pieces. She kept it together because she loved you. But love doesn't survive in silence. Connection doesn't deepen through distance. And so the drift continued. What used to be intimacy became coexistence. What used to be laughter became polite nods. What used to be us became me and you, living separate lives under the same roof. She still hoped. She still reached out. But you were already gone emotionally. And when someone's heart leaves the room, their body becomes a stranger. This is how the silent drift destroys relationships, not with fights or betrayal, but with neglect. With the slow erosion of attention, appreciation, and effort. And the damage is deeper than you think, because she didn't lose faith in you overnight. She lost it every time you turned away when she needed you to turn toward her. Every time you chose your comfort over connection. Every time you saw her pain and said nothing. You may not have intended to hurt her, but indifference is not innocent, silence is not neutral, and eventually even the strongest woman grows tired of waiting to be seen. By the time she lost control, you were already used to the distance, but she was still holding on, barely. And when she finally broke, it wasn't because she stopped caring. It was because she couldn't carry both of you any longer. Every person has a limit. Even the most patient heart eventually reaches the edge of its strength. She didn't wake up one morning and decide to lose control. That moment, the moment you saw her snap, cry uncontrollably, or walk out the door, wasn't the beginning of her breakdown. It was the end of a long and silent war she was fighting inside herself. She tried everything before that. She tried to talk. She tried to forgive. She tried to explain her needs in ways that didn't make her seem needy. She lowered her expectations. She gave second chances, third, fourth, but nothing changed. Nothing moved you. And so, slowly, everything in her began to unravel. The breaking point is deceptive. From the outside, it looks like sudden chaos, but it is always the final result of built-up pain. It is the moment where suppressed emotions erupt, not because she's irrational, but because she's been rational for too long. She carried disappointment, like armor, telling herself to be strong, to be understanding. But strength is not infinite when it is met with emptiness. When her love became one-sided, when her efforts became expected rather than appreciated, when your silence became her new normal, That's when the crack began. She began to feel more alone with you than she ever did by herself. And that loneliness, the kind that exists right next to someone who once made her feel chosen, is the loneliest kind of all. It's the kind of loneliness that makes you question your worth. She was fighting to hold on to something you let go of quietly, and that fight cost her everything: her joy, her peace, her confidence, her identity. And when she broke, it wasn't a moment of weakness. It was the final cry of someone who had stayed strong without support for far too long. Her breaking point wasn't a reaction to one moment. It was the weight of years. Years of overlooked pain, misunderstood emotions, dismissed concerns. She raised her voice, not because she stopped loving you, but because it was the only way. She thought you might finally hear her. She walked away not because she didn't care, but because staying was destroying who she was. You called it overreacting. You told her she was too sensitive. But the truth is, you never saw the parts of her she kept hidden just to keep your love alive. She didn't lose control because she was broken. She lost control because she was breaking, bit by bit, piece by piece, under the pressure of your indifference. Her final outburst was not an act of recklessness. It was the sound of something sacred shattering inside her, the belief that if she loved you enough, you'd come back to her. And once that belief was gone, so was the version of her who waited. Apathy doesn't scream. It doesn't slam doors or throw things. It doesn't make a scene. Apathy is quiet. It's the shrug of the shoulders when she's crying. It's the glazed over eyes when she's talking. It's the silence in response to her pain, and the absence of effort where there used to be pursuit. You didn't stop loving her with a shout, you stopped loving her with a whisper, and that's what made it so devastating. Because she kept looking for the man who used to care, but all she found was someone who barely noticed when she stopped smiling. Love dies when it is no longer tended. You didn't have to be cruel to break her. You just had to stop trying. The things you once did so freely, random compliments, thoughtful gestures, long conversations, those things began to vanish, replaced by distance, by distraction, by disinterest. She used to be your world, but now she feels like a burden. You didn't tell her she was too much, but your silence did. You didn't say she wasn't worth it anymore, but your actions did. And little by little, she started to believe it. That's the cost of apathy. It doesn't just take away connection, it rewrites her identity. It turns a vibrant, confident woman into someone who second-guesses herself every time she looks in the mirror. She starts to wonder why she's never enough. She tries harder, becomes quieter, gives more. She twists herself into a version she thinks you might love again, but nothing changes. And eventually she realizes it's not about her anymore. It's about you. And the fact that somewhere along the way you decided she was no longer worth the effort. She begins to detach, not because she stopped loving you, but because she has to protect herself from drowning in the emptiness you've left. And when she finally loses control, when she lashes out, when she walks away, it's not her first choice. It's her last resort. Apathy doesn't just kill love. It kills trust, hope, safety. It turns a relationship into a transaction, a home into a battlefield. And by the time you realize what you've done, the damage is already deep. Because once a woman has cried alone long enough, once she's begged in silence for connection and received none, once she's felt invisible in the eyes of the man she loves, something inside her dies. And sometimes it doesn't come back. You may not have cheated. You may not have hit her. But you left her all the same. You just did it with your heart still in the room. And in some ways, that's the cruelest way of all. Because she had to watch the man she loved fade away right in front of her, without any warning, without any closure. Just a growing distance and a love that no longer looked her in the eyes. Anger is rarely the first emotion. It's the loudest, yes, but not the first. What came first was the ache. The ache of being dismissed, the ache of feeling like she was talking to a wall, the ache of watching someone she adored become a stranger. She didn't get angry because she wanted to hurt you. She got angry because she couldn't reach you. Because every gentle word had been ignored, every soft plea overlooked, and so her pain took the only path left. volume. You saw her rage, but what you didn't see was the broken heart underneath it. When love isn't heard, it eventually starts to scream. And when someone screams, it isn't always hatred. It's often desperation. A desperate need to feel something real again, to wake you up from your emotional slumber, to make you look at her the way you used to. Her voice shook, her words stung, her eyes flared with fire. But what she was really saying was, see me, hear me, fight for me. But you didn't. You wrote her off as emotional, dramatic, unstable. You mocked the intensity she brought into the room without asking why it was there. You thought she was just overreacting, but you never stopped to ask, what is she reacting to? Behind that storm of emotion was a heart that had been patient for too long. A heart that had quietly endured 1,000 small rejections. Your apathy, your sarcasm, your dismissive tone, your cold shoulders, those moments added up. And while you were growing comfortable, she was growing tired. Tired of being the only one who cared if the relationship lived or died. Her anger wasn't the enemy. It was a signal. A flashing red light warning you that something sacred was slipping through your fingers. You should have asked what was wrong, not rolled your eyes. You should have leaned in, not walked away. Because underneath her fury was grief. The grief of losing the man she once knew and the dream she built around him. She didn't raise her voice because she hated you. She raised it because she missed you. And that cry, that sharp tone, that tear-streaked face, that trembling voice, that was her love, bruised and exhausted, still begging you to fight for what you both once held dear. But there's a danger in ignoring that cry. If you only see her emotion and not the pain beneath, you'll miss the window to make it right. Eventually, that cry stops. Not because she healed, but because she gave up. And when a woman gives up, not even her silence will ask you to stay. Her anger was never the threat. Her indifference will be. Because when she's done crying for your attention, she'll find peace in the place where she no longer expects you to show up. When love has been wounded, when trust has been eroded and distance has taken root, the path back is not wide and paved. It is narrow, uphill, and marked by humility. But it is there. Maybe she's still in the room, silent and guarded, hoping you'll finally see her again. Or maybe she's already walked out the door, carrying with her every unanswered prayer, every unspoken apology. Either way, the road back to what you lost or could lose isn't found in grand gestures or hollow promises. It begins with one word: responsibility. You may not have meant to hurt her. You may not have intended to become cold, distracted, or distant. But you did, and that pain is real. You can't dismiss it because it wasn't deliberate. You have to own it because it was yours. The first step toward healing isn't asking her to stop being angry. It's asking yourself why you stopped being present. Because the heart you once pursued didn't close overnight. It shut itself in 1 inch at a time for survival. And if you want to reach it again, you can't barge in, you have to knock. The way back means slowing down. Listening. Not defending yourself every time she expresses her hurt, but truly hearing her. Not correcting her feelings, but validating them, even when they make you uncomfortable. You want to fix things? Then stop trying to be right, and start trying to be real. Be real about where you went wrong. Be real about what you've been avoiding. Be real about the version of yourself she fell in love with, and whether he still exists. You may not be able to undo every mistake, but you can become the man who doesn't repeat them. That's what she needs. Not a perfect man, but a present one. A man who shows up when it's hard, who chooses love when it's inconvenient, who makes the effort not because he's being begged to, but because he wants to. You want her back? Then bring your full heart to the table. Not just your apology, not just your charm, your heart. And if she's already gone, and reconciliation is no longer possible, then the way back is still the same. But it leads you back to yourself. Back to the man you were called to be. Not for her approval, not for anyone's praise, but because heaven never made you to be passive, careless, or indifferent. It made you to love boldly, lead gently, and protect what is sacred. That kind of love still matters. That kind of man is still needed. And the way back to healing, whether it's with her or for the next chapter of your life, begins the moment you stop blaming the silence and start answering the call. Because even broken hearts can find their way home. But someone has to take the first step. You see, this was never just about her losing control. It was about what led her there. The slow fade of attention, the silent drift of connection, the quiet pain that swelled beneath your indifference. She didn't fall apart because she was weak. She fell apart because she carried more than any one person should have to, while still trying to hold together what you both were letting go. When a woman loves deeply, she fights quietly at first. She hopes. She waits. She believes. But when her efforts are met with nothing but empty space and cold shoulders, that love begins to change. It loses its laughter. It loses its softness, and eventually it loses its home. You didn't see the damage because you were still comfortable. She was breaking while you were browsing your phone. She was hurting while you were making excuses. And when she finally lost control, when the tears wouldn't stop, when the words got sharp, when the silence turned permanent, that was not the beginning of her rebellion. That was the cost of your absence. But the good news is this: it doesn't have to end in ruins. Whether the damage has already been done or you still have time to turn back, there is a way forward. A way of love that is consistent, intentional, present. And if you've been the one who drifted, if you've been the one who lost interest, then it's not too late to become the one who chooses again. Choose to return. Choose to listen. Choose to see her. Because she didn't lose control out of nowhere. She lost control the moment you lost interest. And it's time you found your way back. Not just to her, but to the man you were meant to be. That's the message. Let it convict you. Let it humble you, and most of all, let it change you.